Good afternoon. Many of you will know that I make videos about cycling, but many of you may also know that I'm in the process of buying a campervan, and so there will be campervan videos added to this site. Now I thought to try and make it clear which kind of video that I'm doing. As you know, when I'm doing a cycling video, I generally dress like a slob. Let's be honest about this. I dress in a fairly similar way to the Prime Minister. I look like a mess. So I thought if I'm going to make campervan videos, I ought to smarten myself up a bit. So I put on a shirt. If you like it, leave a comment down below if you don't like the shirt, and perhaps I'll change it and may even buy another one. Unless actually no, that's bad for the planet. So I won't buy another one, but I'll get another one out of the wardrobe. So what am I doing today? Well, it's not really the first, it's actually the second campervan video, but it's going to be what campervan did I choose to buy and why. So settle in, and I hope you'll enjoy this. I haven't got the campervan yet, so I'm not in the garage of the campervan. You're going to have to wait a little bit to find out whether there is a garage with the campervan. I'm actually in the normal garage, which you may have seen if you've watched my cycling videos, and let me direct you to my cycling videos if you're interested in cycling. If you're not interested in cycling, by the way, just make sure you only watch the videos where I'm wearing a nice smart shirt, because that is generally going to be a campervan video. So let's get stuck in. Many of you will know that this, you see this clearly? This is a picture of a Volkswagen California, and it is a very popular campervan model. It is also very, very expensive, and being a retired gentleman of fairly limited means, it is beyond my budget. It's around about, I think it starts at about 55 or 60,000 or 65,000 of our English pounds. But as with many of these things, when it says starts, once you start to add, the options like a steering wheel and a passenger seat and a heater and perhaps a front headlight, then it starts to add up in price. And to get to something pretty decent like what you'd really want, you're probably looking at about £75,000 sterling, and it's not just more than I can afford, it's more than I want to afford, even if I could afford it. So you could say, well, just buy a second-hand one, Julian. Well, if you know anything about the second-hand campervan market, you will know that prices are pretty high. So to get a decent one, you're probably looking at, 45,000, something like that, unless you buy a fairly old one with the consequent risks of that, and I am not by any stretch of the imagination a competent motor mechanic any more than I'm a competent cycle mechanic. So that kind of ruled that out. This is another campervan which you may be familiar with, and this is basically a van, as the VW is, a van that has been converted. And this, I think, is actually somebody who has converted their own van. And I would like to have done that. That's probably a bit too big for me, or for my family's usage, because what I wanted was essentially a campervan that could be used as a car, or a car that could be used as a campervan. And there are inevitable compromises, of course. If it's small enough to be similar to a car, it's not necessarily big enough to be a campervan. And if it's big enough to be a campervan, it's not necessarily small enough to be a car. Maybe I've made the right choice. I don't really know yet. I think I made the right choice. You'll have to wait till the end of the video to find out. The other kind of thing that you would be familiar with is this. Of course, this is not a campervan, this is a motorhome. And a motorhome is very much something you can't use as a day-to-day vehicle. And I'm sure this won't come as any great surprise to you. You're not going to go down to Sainsbury's. Not that you should be going to Sainsbury's in your car, of course. But you can't go down to Sainsbury's in a motorhome. So that is going to sit in your driveway. And it needs to be a pretty big driveway to accommodate that. So otherwise, you're going to have to store it somewhere, which is going to cost you extra. And unless you use it really regularly, a bit like a second property or timeshare or something like that, unless you use it regularly, it's just going to end up like a white elephant. And this is very similar to a white elephant, although without the tusks. Well, I think maybe you can get them with tusks, although they're not ivory anymore, of course. So then I looked at something a bit older, and you'll probably be familiar with this. Yes, the famous Mazda Bongo. Very popular with, shall we say, the kind of hippie-ish or the studenty fraternity, and a nice vehicle. And when I did my Le Jog cycle ride, one of the cyclists, their partner, followed them round on the route in a Mazda Bongo, so I had a bit of a look at it. And yeah, it's not a bad vehicle, but I think they stopped making them in around about 2000 or so they're getting pretty old. And again, I'm not the sort of person who'd be good at looking up, not so much looking after, but doing anything to work on a Mazda Bongo. So that sort of put me off. Incidentally, Katie Kookaburra, who you may know makes cycling videos and who is well worth digging out, I'll leave a link to her videos. She recently bought a van, and I'm not buying a van because Katie Kookaburra bought a van, despite what some people say. But she's a lot younger than me. I don't think she's got a family, so all she's really doing is getting a van, which is an unconverted van, but putting a kind of mattress and a few bit of extras in the back, plus her bicycle. But you know, I've got a wife, I've got a family. That would work for me if it was just me and my bicycle, but it isn't just me and my bicycle. Another YouTuber who I really enjoy watching is called Henry Wildberry, and again I'll leave a link to his videos if you've not watched any of his stuff with his friend or partner Ms. Cools. And he has something similar to this, not exactly like this, and this is one of the early VW, Volkswagen Westfalia, who were the coach company who did this conversion to a campervan. Really nice looking vehicle, but again, very much a kind of studenty, hippie-ish, very much surfers, and with the best will in the world, I'm not a surfer, and I just don't feel confident, comfortable working on something like that, and I'm not sure it's necessarily all that comfortable. And when you get to a certain age, as I'm sure you understand, comfort is quite important. In fact, comfort is very, very important. So the kind of the kind of things that informed my choices, as I said, was I wanted something that could work as a car, that could also work as a camper van, that wasn't necessarily something that I was going to go away, or I was going to go away with my wife for a week and camp in the vehicle. Maybe the odd night here and there, but more, I think, what people call a day van. You know, you could go to the seaside, and we could be one of those kind of elderly, miserable couples who never talk to each other. Well, we are anyway, but who kind of drive to the seaside, and then they sit in their vehicle, drinking from a thermos flask of tea, and they watch the rain lashing down outside, and then they drive home and don't talk to each other, and then they go into their houses and watch Coronation Street and still don't talk to each other. God, I could be describing my own life, but I think you know what I mean. A day van. So you could go somewhere for a day out, and you could just nip into the back, and you could have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, perhaps half a dozen donuts, something like that, maybe a Danish pastry, coffee and walnut cake, carrot cake, they're quite nice as well, chocolate eclairs, vanilla slices, you'll know the kind of things if you watch Bake Off. You could just sit in the back of the van and just kind of relax like that, and watch the rain teeming down and the seagulls shitting on your roof and stuff like that. So that was the kind of thing I was looking for, and it did strike me. Incidentally, I have driven a Volkswagen van, not a camper van. I actually borrowed one from a friend of mine and then damaged it, but that's another story. And although it was fairly pleasant to drive, it was a van. I mean, there's no getting away from that. It was a van. And I haven't driven a VW California, so it may actually be very car-like and very pleasant to drive. But what I wanted something, and what it kind of struck me, was whatever you do with a camper van, you are going to spend quite a lot of time driving. So you want a comfortable driving position. You want a comfortable vehicle with mod cons. You know, you want air conditioning, you want decent heating, you want electric windows, you want all those other things that we've become used to in our cars that, yes, you can get on a camper van. You probably wouldn't get a lot of those things in a very old camper van like a Mazda Bongo, well, I suppose you may do, but in order to get all those kind of luxuries in a VW California, you're talking about 75, 80 grand, something like that. And as I've said, that was beyond my budget. So I also looked at, I didn't really look, but I saw this which is a Nissan L Grand, which again is a vehicle made for the Japanese market, but is imported into this country and converted to a campervan. And that looked quite interesting. Although most of the versions that I saw on YouTube, and I have watched a lot of stuff on YouTube, so I want to say, you know, a big thanks to all you people who post campervan videos on YouTube. It's obviously a big subculture, and there's been a lot of very useful information, and I hope I'm in my small way perhaps adding to that canon of information. But anyway, most of the Nissan L Grands that I saw on YouTube seem to have a kind of rear kitchen conversion, and the seats kind of folded down, but they didn't make a proper bed. They made an approximation of a bed, and that wasn't really enough of the campervan element that I was looking for. So what did I settle for in the end? Well, to put you out of your misery, I've settled for one of these, which is a Toyota Alphard. And this was a vehicle made for the Japanese market, only for the Japanese or the Far Eastern market, not produced in Britain, although it has been imported into Britain as a kind of MPV, a 7 or 8 seater MPV, which lots of companies are then converting into a campervan with, as you can see, a pop-top roof, with either a rear conversion, like I mentioned in the Nissan L Grand's case, or a side conversion. The side conversion produces a fold-down bed, a bit wider than a single but a bit narrower than a double. I think it's unlikely, to be honest, that my wife is going to want to sleep in the campervan with me. I obviously wouldn't sleep in the campervan with anybody other than my wife, although I would sleep in it on my own. So the bed is, I think, big enough for one person on their own, not quite big enough for two. But the fact is, if I go away with my wife, or rather when I go away with my wife, I mean, we're probably going to stay in an Airbnb or in a hotel. So we're not... although you know, I said, but I don't have the finances for a VW California. At the same time, I'm not buying a campervan just as a way of saving money. You know, it's not just because campsites are cheaper and I desperately want to link up with other campers on campsites. I cast no aspersions on campsite people. In fact, I think they're very nice people. In fact, I met a tremendously nice couple when I went on a cycling trip to Herne Bay, who were in their campervan or kind of motorhome kind of thing, and I had a good discussion with them. So, you know, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm not doing it just because I'm desperate to go and stay on campsites. I'm quite happy to get in the campervan and drive to a hotel and stay the night in a hotel. And if people look at me askance and say, well, why have you got a campervan? You're staying in a hotel. I'll say, mind your own fucking business, right? Because, you know, that's what I want to do. I am, however, very interested in putting the bike on the, or transporting the bike with the van, going somewhere, doing a cycle ride, perhaps sleeping the night or 2 nights in the van, although that's not necessarily the prime motive for getting it. Now, it may well turn out, of course, that we get the Alphard. I'm just showing you the picture of it there. We get the Alphard. We do some campervan type journeys. I stay overnight in it. My wife decides to stay overnight in it, and we really like it. And then we decide, actually, this isn't big enough. We do want to step up to something bigger, and so forth. And that will be fine, because that will be a kind of stepping stone upwards where we would have learnt it. And if we decide not to do that, well, we've got a pretty decent, pretty comfortable, pretty nice, reasonably luxurious. It's not a top of the line model by any chance, by any stretch of the imagination, but a very comfortable car that can just be used as a car. So I'm picking it up this Friday. I've purchased it through a company called Imperial Leisure Vehicles, which is down in Poole in Dorset. I'll leave a link to their website. I've been talking to the boss there, who's called Martin Goff, who's been very helpful, been very friendly so far. So I'm hoping that I've not seen the camper van. I saw the original unconverted van. In fact, I did a video about it, but I hadn't seen it since or while the conversion has been going on. So the first time I'll see the whole thing in the flesh as a converted camper van is this Friday. So I will be doing a video of it, not necessarily this Friday, which will show you all about the camper van. So that's my journey to getting a camper van, and the reason why I'm getting the Toyota Alphard itself. It's a 3-litre model, by the way, and what else is it? Well, it's a 3-litre Toyota Alphard. It's going to have a pop-top roof. It's an automatic, and I'll show you all the other various bits and pieces and stuff that's in it, and the kind of the bed and the kind of kitchen unit and the sink unit and so forth when I've got the van. So hopefully you'll join me on my camper van journey, and if you want to watch cycling videos, you'll find them on my channel. You'll also find some movie reviews, which is another thing that I do, but please join me with the camper van, and I hope to have lots of adventures which I shall document for you, and I hope you'll enjoy them. So please remember that my channel raises money for the Vine Food Bank, which is in Croydon in the United Kingdom, and you can see a link to it. But every time you sit through a video and sit through the adverts, you're helping to raise money for people who are less fortunate than ourselves. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.